Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly Purple Penny coin news video. We're back in our usual place for the first time in a few weeks. Of course, last week we were having work done around the shop, which meant that I couldn't do the video from here, and the week before we were at the expo here in Adelaide, so we just did a quick walk around. My name's Mark. I run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine, and we're in Mawson Lakes, which is a suburb about 15 minutes north of Adelaide, which is the capital of South Australia. And if you are not sure where South Australia is because you're watching overseas, South Australia is the state of Australia that's in the middle at the bottom. So we've been here for about 3.5 years, and this is episode number 41, I think, this year, the 41st time I've done this year. So the shop continues to be busy with what can only be called the post-passing surge, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. The shop has been noticeably busier in terms of buying and selling since the Queen passed. I will just say it's probably tailing off a little bit at the moment. We sort of do have the odd minute or two to get a few things done when the shop's open now, whereas really the 2 or 3 weeks after she passed there was no time to get anything done. But I think anyone who was scared for the future of the hobby would just need to come and hang out in the shop here for a couple of hours on a weekday and realise that things are going pretty well. There's lots of new collectors around, lots of enthusiasm, and lots of great people who are fun to talk to, and Catherine and I do really appreciate the fun people that are good to talk to. Nothing of great note that we purchased last week. You probably saw we had a couple of coronation bags on a Facebook post. They are now up on our website. They were purchased from a family who got them for face value back in 2012. They're in exceptionally good condition. The plastic was untoned, the coins were untoned. Nice set of bags. I believe they had more. They're keeping some of them. Hoping that the rapid growth of those bags continues. And we bought a bit of gold last week. We bought a Krugerrand, some $200 gold coins, some sovereigns. The buying has been steady, but nothing exceptionally unusual that I feel compelled to share with you. Of course, you know I love the weird stuff, and whenever the weird stuff comes in, I do like to share it with you. Right, so before we get on to the week's news, we'll just say hello to a few people. Hello Gary, Ben, Mike, Tanya, Pauline, Mohammed, John, Alyssa, Andrew, and that's it for the moment. Right, let's jump into the news. November RAM releases, of course, are coming up on the first Thursday in November. You probably know there's a $2 coin coming out. We'll just pop up the slide of that. There's the November RAM releases. So something that has firmed up during the week is that the price of the Mint Mark Poppy has been confirmed at $15. There was mixed messaging from the Mint about the pricing of that. One communication source said it was $15, another communication source said it was $17.50. They did come out and confirm in the week that it was $15. Now I suspect that it's just because they accidentally said it was $15 and they had intended to put it up to $17.50. So I guess that means that we can expect to see Mint Marks being issued at $17.50 in the future. That would be my guess. Now, the Mint Mark and the Beauty Rich and Rare coin are likely to be in demand, and I can tell you that the Smith family dollar is going to be hard to get as well. We have our allocations of all these items now, and the Smith family dollar is going to be hard to get through RAM retailers as well. Perhaps directly from the RAM you have better luck, but it is going to be tough to get those through us. Now, we are not taking interest in any of these items this month, and the way it's looking at the moment, there will not be any available on our website either. We are still working through how we can make some available to you people out there. and I hope in the next week we can have some direction on that and announce it in the video next week. I'll just jump back to the news slide here. So a few months ago I talked about a family in Yorkshire in England who were renovating their kitchen, and they found gold coins under their floorboards, 260 gold coins, which is pretty remarkable, really. I mean, I'd love to find 265-cent pieces under the floor of my kitchen, but to find 260 gold coins. Now, those coins date from 1610 to 1727, and sort of if you backdate, allowing for inflation, all those gold coins probably were equivalent to £100,000, which I think is about 170,000 Australian dollars at the moment, and they were expected to sell at auction for about £200,000, which is about $350,000 Australian, which is a pretty remarkable amount of money. The auction was held about a week ago, and they actually sold for £754,000. I'll just say that again, £754,000, which is about $1.4 million Australian. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether they were declared as treasure, because of course in England, if you find coins and gold and things like that, it actually has to be declared as treasure and handed over to the government, and then shared. The government gets the first option to purchase those items, but given that the people that found it on their own property, they've got no owner to share it with, so there's a good chance that they have pocketed all of that money, which is absolutely amazing, £754,000. Next item I'll just show you a picture of what those coins look like, by the way, seeing as I went to the trouble of creating a slide. There they are there. They were found in a brass tin, and that's the brass tin there. And that brass tin is about the same size as a can of soft drink. The coins, as I said, ranged in dates from 1610 to 1727. The 1727, I think, was a guinea, was misstruck and actually achieved the highest price in the auction. So, yeah, quite remarkable, quite remarkable. Just jump back to the news. Archaeologists in Israel found 44 Byzantine gold coins in a wall that they were excavating. Byzantine was centered around what is now modern-day Turkey, and of course it was the Eastern Roman Empire. So when the Roman Empire, which of course was based around Rome, split into two empires, the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire, the Western Empire collapsed, and the Eastern Empire continued to operate for several hundred years after the western part of the empire collapsed, and it was known as Byzantine, and they made gold coins that were, in basically imitations of Western Roman coins, and one of the gold coins is called a solidus, and 44 of those solidus were actually solidii were found in a wall in Israel. And again, they ranged in date from about AD 600 to AD 641, and the emperors in question were only two of them, Emperor Phocas and Emperor Heraclius. Now those coins are being managed by the Israel Antiquities Commission, I believe. We'll just show you a picture of those. There they are, the Israel Antiquities Authority. Again, quite a remarkable find from 1600 years ago, pretty much. And back then, that would have been an absolutely massive amount of money that someone's put away. Why they've put it away is unknown. The theories are that it's a time of war. And I did read one theory that these were found in Israel, and that the Christian parts of Lebanon and what is modern day Israel fell to the Muslim invaders around about the time that these coins came from. So perhaps these coins were put away in anticipation that the owners would come back for them after the lands were recaptured from the Muslim invaders. And of course the Muslims don't see themselves as invaders, they consider that to be their land. I'm not going to get into all of that sort of stuff, But clearly, the person who put it away never came back for it. So this is someone's lost fortune that was found 15 or 1600 years later. Now, the last item in the news here is only vaguely coin related, but it was such an interesting story. I thought I'd share it with you. So, someone who is an inmate of the Georgia correctional system, Georgia being the state in the USA, has somehow managed to swindle 6,106 ounces of gold and used that money to buy some houses. Unfortunately for him, he got caught. What is really remarkable about this is he has managed to do this while he was in jail. So the long and short of what he did was that he opened up a checking account with a large US bank, and he impersonated a well-known billionaire to open up that checking account. He provided fake ID to open up the checking account. I think it was a fabricated driver's license and some other items that he must have fabricated while he was in jail. The checking account's been opened, and he's then managed to convince the bank somehow to transfer $11 million to a bullion dealer. The bullion dealer has sold him 6,106 ounces of gold. He's then somehow managed to arrange, this just gets weirder and weirder, a courier to pick up the 6,106 ounces of gold, which was in the form of 1 ounce gold coins, American silver gold eagles. He's managed to arrange a courier company to have those gold coins delivered to some accomplices who have then used it to purchase real estate in cash. So they've cashed in the gold and then purchased several $1 million worth of real estate in cash. And thankfully he did get caught. So it's quite a remarkable effort for someone who's in prison. And if only he used his powers for good and not evil, gosh knows what he could accomplish. Right, topic of the week. We haven't had a topic of the week for a little while, so I thought we would have one this week based on a really amazing error that we bought at the Adelaide Coin Expo. Foreign planchet errors. Foreign planchet errors are a type of wrong planchet error. So you might remember from about 6 weeks ago, we talked about wrong planchet errors. That's where a coin is struck on the wrong planchet. Perhaps a 2 cent on a 1 cent blank, or a $2 on a 5 cent blank, or a $1 on a 10 cent blank. A subcategory of that type of error is a foreign planchet error, and that is a coin that is struck on a planchet or blank intended for another country's coin. So how does it happen? Of course, it happens because the company, the mint in question, usually is striking coins for other countries, and the blank supply gets contaminated. Now, usually, I say usually, there are other ways it could happen. The mint in question could get supplied blanks from a company who is making blanks for other countries, and the blank supply actually gets contaminated back at the company that is making the blanks. So the most common ones that we see, and none of these are common, I should just preface this to say that foreign planchet errors are exceptionally unusual. Certainly here in Australia, the most common ones are, of course, Australian coins struck on blanks intended for other countries. So we'll just share some of those with you. So this is one of mine. It's a shilling struck on a war nickel blank. During World War II, the US Mint in San Francisco and Denver was striking silver coins for Australia, freeing up Australia's industrial capacity for the war efforts. And of course, as would happen in times of extreme stress, where really the volume of production was emphasised over the quality of production, a war nickel, which is a 35% silver 5 gram blank, got into the supply for an Australian shilling. The Australian shilling was struck on the war nickel and on the war nickel blank, and this is the error that that resulted. So a pretty cool error. We've seen shillings struck, florins struck on quarter blanks, and I think that I may have seen a florin struck on a dime blank as well. So, you know, quite remarkable errors. For a more modern example, it's this one which I have discussed a few times before. It's a $2 coin struck on a 10-cent euro blank. Now, this was struck here at the Royal Australian Mint, and the way that this happened was that the euro blank contaminated the supply of $2 blanks back in Korea, probably, because the Royal Australian Mint during this time was getting its blanks from a company in South Korea. The company in South Korea was also making blanks for euros, and somehow one of those blanks ended up in the supply that was sent out here to Australia, and $2 coins were struck on them. There's been several of these found. So this is a slight variation. The US coin was struck because the US Mint was making Australian coins as well, whereas this one has been struck because the blanks were supplied from somewhere that was contaminated. Right, so they're both Australian denominations struck on foreign blanks. Now, what is less common, because why, I'm not really sure, is when you see foreign coins struck on Australian blanks. And I've probably only seen a few of these, and the most common ones are wartime World War II coins struck on Australian pre-decimal blanks. So quarters struck on shillings, quarters struck on sixpences, war nickels struck on sixpences, and those sorts of things. So just a quick look around. This is one that I had actually seen before. So this is a US war nickel that's struck on a sixpence, an Australian sixpence planchet. Now, how do you know that it's an Australian sixpence planchet? There's two ways. One is that you can weigh it, and it should weigh about 2.85 grams, and you can do an assay on it, so actually assay it to work out what the metal is made, work out what the blank is made from, and it would have been sterling silver. The records of the US Mint are available. You can work out what coins they were striking during this period, and the only blank that would fit would be a Australian sixpence. So this is a variation on it. So this is a foreign coin struck on an Australian blank. Very rarely seen. I've certainly never seen one here in Australia. I'm not even sure that I've ever seen one for sale here in Australia. We've certainly never handled one. Now, this is all just leading in nicely to this jigger here that we bought at the expo a couple of weeks ago. Now, we bought this off of another dealer. The other dealer bought it thinking it was a 50-cent broad strike error, or struck out of collar. So the coin at the top left there is the error that we purchased, and at the bottom right there you can see a 1982 Charles and Diana 82 or 81, I can't remember, the Royal Wedding 50-cent piece. So it's probably hard to see from the images there, but there are some slight differences in both the font and the portrait of the Queen there. So, I mean, I can't really quite explain what the differences are. It's just a bit of wrongness. You just look at it and it just looks a bit wrong. The other thing that you can see, perhaps even faintly on the error at the top left there, is it actually has some rim beads on it. And of course, the Chuck and Die 50-cent piece doesn't have rim beads on it. So there's something going on here. And I guess the reason why we're focusing on Chuck and Die is because if we look at the back, there's the error at the top left there, and there's a Chuck and Die 50-cent at the bottom right there, and it doesn't take you too long to realise that there's something not right there either. Our 50-cent piece has Diana at the front and Charles at the back, and the error that we purchased has Diana at the back and Charles at the front. So this isn't a Charles and Die 50-cent broad strike error. Now, the blank is copper nickel of the correct type. We have XRF tested it and we've weighed it. It is definitely a 50-cent blank. Definitely a 50-cent blank. So if we think back to, someone tell me, is it at 1981? We know that these coins were struck at the Royal Mint in England. There was industrial problems at the Royal Australian Mint here in Australia in this period, and much of the workload of striking of coins was farmed out to the Royal Mint in England and the Royal Canadian Mint. These ones in particular were struck at the Royal Mint in England. So here we have an Australian 50-cent blank that has the wrong design on it. It is not the right design. So what coin was struck in 1981 at the Royal Mint that has Charles and Di on it that isn't our 50-cent piece from Charles and Di? And you'll slap your head when you see what it is, because they are extremely common, and it kind of defies belief that this could even happen. So there's our error at the top left, and at the bottom right there we've got a copper nickel crown, and the design of the Queen's portrait, I said it was a little different to our 50-cent piece. It matches this one perfectly. The crown at the bottom right has rim beads on it, as does the error at the top left, and the font is the same and the font size is the same. So we're on to a bit of a winner here. And then if we look at the other side, it will all become clear. So what we've got here is a British 1981 Royal Wedding Crown struck on an Australian 50-cent blank. As far as I know, it's unique. I've certainly never seen or heard of anything else like it. Is it as wonderful as a 50-cent struck on a British planchet? No, but it is still quite remarkable and not likely to be something that is repeated, I wouldn't have thought. It really defies belief how this got to Australia, or even how it got out, because these copper nickel crowns, the one that you can see at the bottom right there, were made for the collector market, and they weren't a circulating coin. So somehow this error has got out. It didn't get sent to Australia as a 50-cent piece, you wouldn't imagine. I don't understand how that could happen. But somehow it's got from the UK and it's got here to Australia, and it's ended up in an album. It's been purchased as a broad strike error by one dealer, and then purchased off of that dealer by us as a recognised error. So you lot are the first ones to see it. We haven't shared this with anyone else. We're going to write an article for Cab about it, because it is quite a remarkable thing. A 1981 British Royal Wedding Crown struck on an Australian 50-cent planchet. So foreign planchet error that is around a different way to the majority of other foreign planchet errors that you see. So thanks for watching. That's it for this week. As I said about the releases in November, we're not taking interest in them. There's probably not going to be any available on our website. We will confirm that next week, and hopefully we'll have a way next week of providing some availability to people out there that aren't able to get into the shop. And just stay tuned for that. Perhaps follow our Facebook page if you don't already follow our Facebook page. We may announce it during the week. Alright, thanks everyone for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. Happy collecting. Remember, collect what you love, and we'll see you the same time next week. Bye for now.